Welcome back, everybody. And when you hear that music, you already know it's time to enter the dojo. Look, we've been grinding behind the scenes, building out these scouting profiles for FSAN's rookie guide, which goes on pre-sale on March 9th, the day that this video drops. So if you want early access and discounted pricing, make sure you're in the free Devy Dojo Discord. The link is going to be right there in your screen. But enough housekeeping because, look, we cooked up an absolute banger for tonight. The Shifu and I, we brought in a very, very special guest. Dynasty Dog Mike, one half of my dog's favorite podcast, the Dynasty Dogs. Now, Mike is probably one of my closest confidants in this space, certified ball knower, the type of guy who he's like me. He's just one of my people, grinding the all 22 at midnight, texting you with reps and high-ended analysis, man. Like literally my phone is littered with clips and talk back and forth between us. So with that said, Mike, my dog, how are we feeling tonight?
I'm feeling good. I love your guys' intro. It's one of my favorites. I think the music just blends really well into what you guys do. And obviously, I'm a Dynasty dog. I do not want to make a mess in the dojo tonight, so I apologize for any mishaps or spills or anything like that. But yeah, this is my first time on here, so I'm super excited. Hopefully, Dustin, the last time me and you did a show together, I think it went almost 2 hours. So let's hope for not another one of those.
Yeah, we're not going to go that long, but I mean, look, if the conversation gets flowing, like it's just talking ball.
Sure.
Man, we'll go. We'll just roll with it. But Chris, Shifu, my guy, man, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and tell the people what we got cooked up for?
Yeah, man, it's great to have Mike on. Mike, we have had very few guests, so you should feel honored. You are within the first handful of guests. We love having you here. It's good to have another Eagles fan on the pod as well. And that's a great lead off into this podcast today because we have used a full 7-round mock draft to create a mock draft here. We did in this order, Mike and then me and then Dustin, just going down the line based on this mock that we were sharing between each other, trying to see where this is going to shake out, what these landing spots are going to do to players' ADPs and values and such. So looking forward to talking specifics, talking where these people might land and how that might change the impact that they have on the Dynasty game.
All right, man. With that said, let's just roll right into it. Let's start with that first pick, Mr. Dynasty Dog Mike.
No, yeah, you guys gave me the
Jeremiyah love.
Yeah, you gave me the layup of the entire thing here. I really didn't even want it, to be honest with you, because it's so easy. I mean, you can listen to you guys. You can listen to any fantasy podcast. You can listen to any NFL production going on. Everyone's saying Jeremiyah loves like the blue chip player of this class. I've even heard some people say he's the best player in this draft class. So it's no shock that he goes one here to New Orleans Saints. So that, like, listen, in a Kellen Moore offense with the blue chip player at running back, I think we'll all be really excited with that. And I'd be, where would he fall for you? I know it's a little off topic. Where would he fall for you guys in like their hierarchy of the classes, with Bijan and Gibbs and, Genty and Hampton? Like, would he be above some of those guys or?
Yeah, I think so. I've been on record a few times as saying I would have him slightly above Genty just because of the receiving profile, still below Bijan for me. But I mean, he's really close as a prospect. It's always hard when you say this because you've been able to see Genty, you've been able to see Bijan in the NFL, and there's still that projection with Jeremiyah Love. But I think to me, my key profile is as that next do-it-all type of back, like the modern workhorse where he's going to be getting the receiving work. I mean, put on the Tate versus Arkansas, and you saw this guy running legitimate routes, like as a running back. I think he's just so talented. He has that home run potential that I think he might be a better fantasy back than Ashton Genty. And hopefully, going to the New Orleans Saints, that would be a much better landing spot.
Yeah, this is one where it's tough. For me, I have him slightly below Genty. I think Genty's truly undervalued even right now. He's one of the best buys of the Dynasty offseason. I think he's one of the best pure runners that we've seen coming out of college in the last several years. But, depending on your league settings, there's a lot of people that are doing funky league settings now, like tiered PPR, where running back catches matter more than, tight end catches or wide receiver catches. If that's the case, you got to bump Love up a little bit more, right? I think if you have him on an equal playing field, it's very, very, very close. So you're like splitting hairs there. But there's a lot of reasons because of what Dustin said that if you have a receiving boost to that running back room, that you want to take Love. And this is a great landing spot for him, going in the top 10, going to New Orleans. I mean, like you said, this is a layup, but it's also a great landing spot for him. So then I was up next, and I followed that up with Makai Lemon. So if you've listened to the dojo for a while, you know that Makai is not my wide receiver one in this class. I'm a Jordyn Tyson stan. But Makai Lemon going all the way at the 21st overall pick to Pittsburgh, where he would be an absolutely amazing fit in that wide receiver room opposite DK Metcalf. This is just too good of a spot. I mean, he would be a fan favorite instantly. I know there's a lot of questions about the quarterback, but when you're drafting these guys in Dynasty, you're thinking about long-term, and I think long-term the ceiling in Pittsburgh would be absolutely massive because there's a real shot that he becomes a 10 or 15-year player in Pittsburgh, never leaves, and everybody's got his jersey on in the stands at Heinz Field.
Agreed. I think Pittsburgh just historically drafts wide receivers well, and especially, within the first 2 rounds. I think he would fill a need for them as the slot Z wide receiver who can create after the catch because they have the down the field threat DK Metcalf who just out muscles everybody. But he also feels like a Steelers wide receiver, physical, small but physical for his size, just a do it all scrappy type wide receiver. So I like this fit here, and I like this at 102 as well.
Yeah, you're going to hear no arguments for me. I would have taken him right there as well. Mike, you laid it out perfectly. Steelers traditionally know how to draft a wide receiver, and in my eyes, they just took the wide receiver one of this class. But moving on to the 103 here, Chris, this was my pick, and I took Carnell Tate. And in watching the film, I really struggled slotting this guy. Do I make him wide receiver 1? I settled in at wide receiver 2 because I just feel like he has the potential to be the best pro of this class. And landing there at fifth overall to the New York Giants, I love that because there's a potential that he's going to get a lot of starting opportunity right off the rip. We don't know if Malik Neighbors is going to come back completely healthy or starting even week 1. And then just how he profiles into the NFL, I think that he was a vertical complement to Jeremiah Smith in the NCAA. Going into the NFL, I think that he can get a lot of work in the intermediate level of the field, and I think he's going to eat, man. Super, super excited for this dude. He's a hands catcher. He's going to go out there and lay out to catch the ball for Jackson Dart out there, and I think he's just a really good fit here. Chris, I know you're a little lower on him, but how would you feel about him here at New York?
Yeah, and low is just relative to the other 2 guys. It's tough, man. There is that tier of the big 3, and it's really, again, splitting hairs a little bit. I've been pro Carnell Tate for the entirety of the history of the dojo, dating back into last summer. I think he's a fantastic athlete. I think he's he's probably the best deep threat in the college game now. And I know that his 40 time might scare people a little bit, but 40 time isn't game time, right? It isn't how you play the game. It isn't what you're doing on the field. He's one of the best deep ball trackers in this class and that we've seen in the last several classes. And he makes those nuanced moves when he's running pretty full speed that can put a lot of defenders on ice skates. So love seeing that landing spot for him. It's probably not the best wish casting that we could do, but I think that's a great option for Malik Neighbors to have a second wide receiver. I think they can both eat in that offense, and I think this will be a good fit for him long term.
Yeah, this is my wide receiver 1. So. Yeah, this is my wide receiver 1 and 40 Schmorty. The only 40 we care about is ounces. The only thing that scares me about the Giants is Matt Nagy as the offensive coordinator. He's kind of not the greatest mind when it comes to calling offenses, and we've seen it. But this is as close to a blue chip wide receiver for me that you could have. I would have him towards the top of last year's class when it comes to like Tate and Luther Burden. I just think this dude has all the talent in the world and some underrated talent, especially as a route runner. I think that goes under the radar because of how tall he is. And usually those taller guys are not as good at like sinking their hips and breaking in and out of routes and like weaving. I think Tate does all of that extremely well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you and I were talking about that too when we both first started watching him. He's just a very intelligent route runner for his size at 6'3". So you love to see that. But Mike, I am curious if you were at 102 and these were your options, these were the landing spots, would you go Tate over Lemon?
I would go Tate over Lemon. It's close for me. So these two are in the same tier for me, but I do have Tate ahead of him. I believe in Dart slightly more than what the Steelers would have at quarterback going forward after Aaron Rodgers leaves, or if Aaron Rodgers is even the quarterback next year. Nobody seems to really know what's happening there either. So I would still go Tate over Lemon, but I really have no argument either way.
Absolutely, yeah, and you followed that up because you did have the 104, and we get our first quarterback off the board, the number 101 pick going to Las Vegas. This is no shock to anybody. Fernando Mendoza, I think this is a great spot for him. I think you can make the argument in Superflex that he goes a little bit higher depending on where people really have their needs on their dynasty teams.
Absolutely. I think, again, this is the layup pretty much, especially for the NFL draft. We all kind of know he's going to Vegas at this point. Like there would have to be a massive trade that happens for anything to change, right? I was kind of hoping Dustin would have taken Jordyn Tyson because I wanted Carnell Tate, but getting a quarterback with the pedigree, with the want to win, and Fernando Mendoza, because you saw it in the championship game against Miami, that dude has some real grit to him, and I think he'll fit really well with the Kubiak system. So I'm glad I got him here.
Yeah, I think having Kubiak there now really vaulted him up by rankings. Obviously, we know I haven't been the biggest Fernando Mendoza fan just from a trades perspective, even projecting for fantasy. I mean, we saw him in college fantasy formats. He wasn't putting up that many points, but I do like him as an in-real life quarterback. And I think that he's going to a really good situation around a team that has everything around him to set him up for success. Of course, they got a lot of money now in free agents to spend in free agency, right? They have Brock Bowers. They have a decent core of weapons for him. And of course, he's going to be tied to a really, really good play caller. So I hate to see him go to a division rival. But so hopefully, with all the pass rushers that we have in Denver, we're just going to make his life miserable. But in Dynasty, Superflex, like you said, Chris, I'd be considering him there at 102 if I'm needy, potentially trading back if that's an option. Maybe getting him here at 104, 105 is always going to be an option.
Yeah, and they have just traded Max Crosby too, so they have another first-round pick in this upcoming draft. They have 120 million in cap space. They're going to need to address the offensive line, but they're looking at 2 first-round picks. It's almost crazy to think that trading a guy with as much talent like Max Crosby makes sense, but it really does for this team. So they have a lot of opportunities now with a new head coach to put as much, support around him as possible. So this is a very good place to land. Sometimes with these guys at 101, in the real life NFL draft, you're a little worried about the places that they go. The teams are obviously there for a reason. I have less concern about the Raiders right now because of what they have going. They're doing a nice little rebuild here. So good landing spot.
2 first-round picks this year and in 2027.
Yeah. The good thing about Kubiak too is that we just saw what he was able to do with reinvigorating, is that the word, Sam Darnold's career. And that's kind of a guy who plays within a system well. And I think Fernando Mendoza fits into that mold. I see a lot of comps to like Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, and Sam Darnold's kind of in that way too. Accurate passer, knows how to play within a system. So I think this would be a good spot for him, obviously.
Absolutely. And I followed that up, and I was very happy to get Jordyn Tyson here at 105 because, as I mentioned, he is my wide receiver 1 in this class. So I got to pair him with my wide receiver 2 by taking Makai earlier, and he's going number 16 overall to the Jets in this mock that we were using. And I think that's a good spot for him too because there's going to be a lot of opportunity. Garrett Wilson is obviously a very, very talented wide receiver, so I think some people might look at that and say, is this really good for him? But the best situation for him, I think, with all of these questions around his, injury history, his raw talent versus, on-field production, what he can do. I think to put the weight of being a wide receiver 1 on his team right off the bat is not going to be a great scenario. So if he lands in a spot like this where we have Garrett Wilson there, Breece Hall just got tagged, so they got a nice running back out there to help support him. This is a good spot for him to grow a little bit, grow the game as a rookie, and then develop into the wide receiver talent that we know that he can be. The Jets, I understand if anybody's got Knox on the team, it's a little bit of a dysfunctional offense. It always seems to be that way. And, God bless all those Jets fans out there. It's been tough sledding for the last 20 years or so. But if you do manage to land this guy at 16, I'm sure you'll be very happy. He's a highly talented wide receiver, and this is a good landing spot for him.
It's just the Jets scare me completely as an organization. I do not trust them to do the right thing. That's why I was a little hesitant to take him there at 103, although it did cross my mind because I love him as a prospect. But I mean, honestly, that's truly what scares me the most. But again, we trust talent over situation overall, right? We always say trust your training. We believe in him as a prospect. He has some flaws in his game. Of course, nobody's a perfect prospect, but I think that dude's just a dog out there. Like we got to go back to 2024 to watch the real tape on Jordyn Tyson, where he really broke out. Injuries don't really scare me, kind of like you touched on. I'm willing to bet on the talent, but yeah, Jets just scare me a little bit. But Mike, what was your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned the 2024 film. I remember watching him for the 2024 draft because everybody thought he was coming out, or 2025 draft, sorry. That he would be coming out, and he didn't. I was really impressed with him. He would have been higher up. But then this year, I think, product of, I think Sam Levitt is the quarterback, correct? Kind of took a step back, didn't look as good, kind of brought the whole offense down. And Jordyn Tyson also didn't look overly healthy, because things I was reading about him is he plays through injuries a lot too. So that's something that, that's great. We love seeing that. We love seeing that grit. But this dude's just an absolute playmaker, right? Good route runner, explosive route runner, can play above the rim. My biggest thing too is who's the quarterback for the Jets this year. Could it be a year one slump for Jordyn Tyson? I think that's highly possible. I do like, however, the offensive coordinator, Frank Reich, for the Jets, because we have seen Frank Reich be a decent offensive coordinator in previous stints. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Just hopefully he doesn't get Carson Wentz, because that's the rumor right now for the Jets.
Yeah, we don't want that at all. I know Levitt was playing through an injury a little bit too as well, and then he ultimately did leave the season. So Tyson was playing with a backup that was giving him nothing. So the down year was slightly a product of injuries to his quarterbacks, unfortunately. So obviously 2024 is the tape you want to look at. His overall analytics are absolutely stunning. He's the analytic darling wide receiver of this class for sure. So massive ceiling. It's just a question of how is it going to translate to the NFL and how can he hold up and stay healthy. Exactly. And then here at 106, this is an absolute nut landing spot for Casey Concepcion. And I am a known hater of this guy, but I considered him at 105, because if he's going to San Francisco, man, it's just wheels up.
Yeah, Casey Concepcion to San Francisco is like a hand in glove fit. That is a perfect marriage. I think it would fill an immediate role for them, obviously, with Brandon Ayuk likely gone, with Debo already off the team, with Ricky Pearsall, for all the talent in the world, he can never really stay healthy. I think he's a guy that Shanahan would have a lot of fun scheming up some easy looks for this guy. You just get the ball in his hands and he's going to go out there and make magic. That's always been his superpower. True freshman breakout, Chris, man. I don't know what I got to do to get these analytic people to like this guy. I think he's a tremendous route runner, snappy off those routes off the top of the stem. And I mean, he's going to be returning kicks for them too. So from a real NFL player perspective, he provides a lot of value to this team. And at the back of the first round in the NFL draft, it's a steal for them, man. And I think that we would likely see Casey Concepcion with this landing spot vault up to that 103, 104 spot. A lot of people are going to be contemplating that. And there's going to be some heavy decisions if we're picking between Pittsburgh and Giants or San Francisco, right? So, I mean, I would be super excited. This is my wide receiver 4 of this class. I've had aggressive visions of putting him into that same top tier. And I think, Mike, you might have actually done that, didn't you? Why don't you go ahead and talk dirty to me about Mr. Casey Concepcion?
Yeah, spoiler alert. He is my wide receiver 3 of the class, but he is in the same tier as Tyson. So it will come down to probably draft capital or draft landing spot at the end of the day. But with San Francisco in this scenario, I would be taking him probably over Mendoza at this point at the 104, just because. Even though I didn't do it, I don't know why I didn't do it. I guess you guys, psyched me out a little bit. I probably made myself scared. I don't know why I did it this way, but Casey Concepcion can do everything Deebo Samuel could do in that offense plus, right? Because we know Deebo was never a great route runner. This dude is, like you mentioned, electric as a route runner, can, stop and start on a dime, can go deep. Really, really impressive after the catch. The biggest thing for him is catch the dang ball. That's the scariest thing. Yeah, alligator arms. But again, this is probably one of my favorite wide receivers of this class outside of the big three, and he is in my big three. So again, San Francisco would be a dream landing spot for most of these guys, but he fits right into that mold of a Shanahan wide receiver.
Yeah, and San Francisco feels realistic because he does seem like one of those guys that's, there's three guys clearly ahead of him that are probably going to go ahead of him in the NFL draft. So he could fall to the back half of the NFL draft. So I think that's a realistic landing spot for him. And like I said, it's absolutely, even for haters like me, it's wheels up. You got to start considering taking him earlier on. And before we do the turn here to the second half of our first round, we want to take a moment to discuss our sponsor for today's episode. And our sponsor for today's episode is us. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have been putting a lot of work into the rookie guide at Fantasy Sports Advice Network. That's going to be released on Monday this week, so it should be out by the time you're listening to this. It's available for you pre-draft. If you got that salivating that you're ready to start thinking about these prospects, thinking about your upcoming drafts, we have tons and tons of notes and lots of work has gone into this. So we would appreciate your support. It's only $10 and there will be options to get cheaper upgrades for the post-draft rookie guide as well whenever we do our updates if you buy it ahead of time. So please consider supporting us. We've been tracking these guys for a long time because we're in the Devy landscape and we're hoping that you'll back us up and take a little faith in our evaluations. And now back to the show. Here we go at 107. We have Mr. Kenyon Sadiq, and in this mock, he's going 15th overall to Tampa Bay. So this is a decent landing spot for him. And I think lately there's a little bit of a discussion. Is he actually the TU1 for fantasy in this class? But I think he's undoubtedly the TU1 in real life football in this class. He's going to be the first one off the board. So I think this is a pretty good spot that you grabbed him at, Mike.
Yeah, this is perfect. This is an offense that's going to need a tight end to kind of take over as an athletic freak, and I think Sadiq can do that because Cade Otton really has just kind of shows up in spurts, but doesn't really offer much, often enough for them. Mike Evans is probably out the door. Chris Godwin has been banged up recently. So I think this would be a great fit. He would definitely propel himself into probably my top 6 Dynasty tight end rankings. I would have to sit down and map that one out. I don't know if I could put him over Dustin and I's favorite tight end of all time, Harold Fannin, but it would be definitely a conversation. But this is an athletic freak playing tight end. This is a wide receiver playing tight end. But in reality, like I say that, but this dude can block. Right. And that's what's going to keep him on the field because he's strong. He literally looks like, I don't know if you guys remember, I shared this with you guys, but he looks like SpongeBob when he has the muscle arms on with the tapered sleeves, because that's exactly what he looks like to me. He's just a Greek god amongst us. So I think this would be perfect.
I'm glad you touched on the blocking, Mike, because there's like this weird discourse out there, this weird narrative that's being put out there that he's not a good blocker. And I don't really know where that stemmed from. I think it's pretty evident anytime you put on the All-22. I mean, he was knocking dudes on their ass out there, and it was a lot of fun to watch. It got me revved up. Like, that's just some real football stuff. So I love Kenyon Sadiq. That's why I think for most people he's tied in 1. I actually really do like this landing spot for all the points that you mentioned. I think initially when doing this draft, I was like, man, I don't know. But then he went out there at that combine and showed out. Like, what was it, a 4? What did he run? A 4.3?
4.39, which is the tight end record.
Yeah.
4.39. That is insane. So, I mean, we know athleticism matters for these guys. I think if you just do a quick glance at his production profile, you might be a little discouraged. But, I mean, there's a lot of context there with how the Ducks just run their offense. They really ask their tight ends to block a lot out there, and they run the ball a lot. They are a very run heavy team. Then Dante Moore is going to kick him with some play action or something like that. But I think translating to the NFL, you could definitely see his production profile, even year one, be much higher than what he was given as an Oregon Duck.
Yeah, I think he's extremely enthusiastic in the running game as a blocker. You know, he could use maybe a little bit of refinement against bigger NFL defensive ends and edge rushers and all that. But his pass protection is where I think he lacks a little bit. But that doesn't really matter, especially if he gets this landing spot, because he's not going to be used that much to block passes. He's going to be running out there as a wideout, as a slot receiver. You know, they got other tight ends in Tampa Bay that can do the blocking if they need to. So good landing spot for him. This is probably the earliest I would consider taking him, is somewhere in the back half of the first round, because I do like a lot of the other tight ends in this class. But this is a good spot for him right now as we start to see a little bit of a tier break with talent. And I followed that up with Omar Cooper Jr., who's a guy that I've grown higher and higher on as we've done more and more evaluations here. And I absolutely love this landing spot. This is him going 36th overall, second round pick for the Las Vegas Raiders. So he's getting paired up with his college quarterback again here in Las Vegas in the NFL. I think that's just a great landing spot. I mean, he could fix a lot of teams. He can help out in a lot of wide receiver rooms right now, but just that idea that they can use a second round pick to give him one of his guys, Mendoza. We just talked about all the support that he's got the opportunity to get in free agency and in the draft coming up. This is a great way to start him off early. Say, hey, you're coming to Vegas. You know, you're a Catholic. You got a lot of Sin City all around you. Get your boy here to keep you grounded, right? We got to keep you focused, locked in, and it'll be an easy button for him out there in the offense. So I think this is a terrific ad for them in this mock. I hope it comes true. This would be absolutely fantastic to see in real life.
I think we've seen this play out a few times, right, Mike? Where you draft a first round quarterback and then you immediately try to pair him with one of his collegiate wide receivers. So it looked like you had some thoughts on that. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Omar Cooper fan. I have been. Yeah, I apologize. I would love this landing spot, especially with Fernando Mendoza as a guy who could play the slot. I think that would be great. There is some real route running issues I have with him. A lot of the screens, a lot of the speed outs. A lot of his out routes are kind of rounded. His dig routes are rounded. They kind of annoy me a little bit. What I really, really, really get frustrated with is that I expected this explosive route runner, and maybe that's my own fault, but he doesn't really accelerate out of his breaks like I really want him to. Like, I really wish he would break the stem of his routes or break the branch, is what I said the other day when I was talking to you guys. But he doesn't do it, and I don't know if that's just, maybe he's more nuanced than I'm giving him credit for. But I just thought in the way he plays, I thought he would be more explosive of a route runner. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree, but I'm interested to see what you think.
Yeah, no. So I actually had him for the aforementioned rookie guide. This is one of the profiles that I completed. And it was one of the weaknesses that I noted in his game, where he wins with a lot more athleticism than that refined, nuanced route running. So I think that that's definitely going into the NFL. He is going to have to develop that a little bit. Indiana was kind of weird, like their offense. As you know, it's kind of RPO heavy. I don't necessarily want to blame the scheme. I will never ever blame Kurt Cignetti for anything. I think he's pretty much become the new Nick Saban in NCAA in my eyes. But that being said, he definitely has to develop that, and that's why I comped him to Brandon Ayuk coming into the NFL from Arizona State, where he really won with a lot of that athleticism, but he had to refine the route running, and that's kind of like a high ceiling comp for him if he can develop that route running. It's kind of like a picture of what he could become if he puts in that work. Now, I know when you say Brandon Ayuk these days, some not so nice thoughts come up, right? But we have to remember the work that he put in to become what he was just a few short years ago. So I would love this pick, man. I just love these stories of pairing with your college quarterback. It would give Fernando Mendoza like a safety valve, somebody that he's going to be confident in. And I think, again, pairing with that offensive mind and Clint Kubiak, I think that they could find up some schemed work for him. Just get him the ball. He's really physical out there. Just get the ball in his hands. He'll be knocking dudes over as well. He was a lot of fun for me on tape, but definitely have to acknowledge those weaknesses in his game.
Yeah, one of the best yak threats of all these wide receivers in this class. He would absolutely be beating people up. He'd be a big fan of all the fans in the black hole down there would love him. Absolutely. And then we followed this up again with a tight end. So I alluded to this guy a little bit here. This was your pick, Dustin, Eli Stowers. In this mock, we have him going in the 3rd round, 74th overall to Kansas City. And I'm a little shocked that he's going all the way in the 3rd round because I think he could ease into the 2nd round for sure in the real life NFL draft. But in this mock, we got to play by the rules that we set for ourselves. And obviously the landing spot is fantastic. Get Patrick Mahomes a nice safety valve tight end there, a future tight or Travis Kelce supremacist or whatever you want to call it, the next guy up. So I appreciate that landing spot, and this is going to make him rise a little bit in ADP for sure.
Yeah, it absolutely will cause him to rise in ADP because, I mean, that's a dream landing spot, right? I mean, if Rocco was on here right now, he'd be telling you it's a fake good landing spot. But I think Pat Mahomes throughout his entire career has shown that he loves to attack the intermediate middle of the field with Travis Kelce. And I think that Eli Stowers, he presents a lot of those same skill sets that Travis Kelce does as a receiver, except he's a lot more athletic. I mean, we talked about Kenyon Sadiq's combine testing. Eli Stowers was right there with him. Now, I don't believe he ran the 40, but all of his other athletic testing was just really, really good. And we knew that, right? We knew him originally going to Texas A&M as a quarterback and then having to transfer to New Mexico, competing with Diego Pavia for the quarterback position. Then he made that transition to tight end. Of course, both he and Pavia moved to Vanderbilt, and they really, really became program changers there. I've been a fan of this kid for a while, watching his tape versus Texas, even watching it live. I remember watching that game at Meg. Man, this dude is going off. And that's like the high-end showcase of what he could be in the NFL. So if he goes to the Kansas City Chiefs, if he gets Andy Reid, if he gets a pissed off, rejuvenated Patrick Mahomes coming back from that injury, I mean, what more can you say? I doubt that he would be going at 109, especially in these heavy tight end premium leagues. Oh, your boy Stowers is going to be getting some shine, man. He's going to be going a little higher than that.
Yeah, I think this would be perfect. Obviously you mentioned with Kelce getting older, the what in the world is going on with Rashee Rice daily situations. They definitely need a pass catching threat, super athletic pass catching threat. I just looked up his RAS score because he did actually run the 40. He ran a 4.51, which is actually really solid for the tight end position. Had a 9.46 overall RAS, so we'd like to see that. This is just a big slot, right? A wide receiver playing the tight end position. And that's the guys like that, we're starting to see come out of college now that we want to take gambles on, especially in tight end premium leagues, because you're hoping for at least those 6 catches, 60 yards, hopefully for a TD. And that just helps you win your week. And I think Stowers can absolutely give you that, especially in Kansas City, because I don't want to see a pissed off Andy Reid or a pissed off Patrick Mahomes.
Absolutely. Yeah, a great landing spot for him. Moving on to 110. This was Mike's pick. We have Antonio Williams, who got, for me at least in this mock, surprising draft capital, going 35th overall, early 2nd round to Tennessee, giving Cam Ward a nice little option there in the passing game, even though it seems like they've been trying to bump that wide receiver room up any way possible, not even just last year, for forever. There's a lot of people now saying that maybe Mike Evans is going there. He might be the next veteran to die at Tennessee, like all the others before him. Randy Moss, Julio Jones, Andre Johnson, the list goes on. But getting a young blood in there to try to be a nice little target for Cam Ward could be a good thing. I haven't been the biggest Antonio Williams fan. He's a little bit undersized, but you got it. I mean, if he goes this early, 35th overall, he's going to be a 1st-round pick in Dynasty rookie drafts.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the wide receiver graveyard in Tennessee. I call them the Lavender Town for all the Pokemon fans out there, where they keep all the cemeteries for the deceased Pokemon. That's where all the veteran wide receivers go to die. But I really like Antonio Williams. I was relatively surprised by this early draft capital that he got, early 2nd round. I do see him as a 2nd, 3rd round guy, but maybe not this early in the 2nd round. So I was surprised. But this is a guy who could play the slot position extremely well, could be an easy safety blanket for Cam Ward. And this is a guy like just even more than a safety blanket, in my opinion, can create after the catch, really twitched up route runner, has some decent speed, really good quickness. This is a guy I've been extremely like pounding the table for. So I'm excited to see him with Cam. And I think that would be a really good connection between those two.
Yeah, I really have nothing else to add. Mike, you know I'm an Antonio Williams fan too. I was a fan of him going into the season when he was being projected as a first-round pick. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. We were looking at that wide receiver room in Clemson and going, man, we got 3 dogs out there, and TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco, and the veteran Antonio Williams lining up there in the slot and killing it. So I mean, I don't know. I was surprised at the second round draft cap, just like you guys as well. But this seems like a guy that Brian Daboll could really use. I think moving in motion there from the slot, just get the ball in his hands, right? Like with Cam needs a good young weapon out there. They had some decent production from these guys last year 1 with the rookie quarterback. Now year 2, we need to get a guy who kind of plays with the veteran mindset. That's what I always loved about his game. He's very intelligent out there running those option routes. So, I mean, you put that in this offense, it's going to come down to how Daboll can use him, but I really don't see that second round draft cap. I think it is important to note that this mock that we are using was put out right before the combine, so this wasn't made with any of those athletic testing in the 40s, any of that new information that we now have.
I think he did pretty well in the combine too, if I'm not mistaken. Though I think he had a very nice. I think he had a really good cone drill, if I'm not mistaken. I'll look that up real quick. But I've always been impressed with Antonio Williams. Like you mentioned, I also think he tempos his routes extremely well. He's not a guy who's, gunning it too quick or anything like that could really frustrate a quarterback. Let's see. Here's his RAS score. He had they actually did not chart that. I'm surprised. But his 10-yard split at 1.55 is very solid too. So I think he's underrated, especially in this class where the wide receiver position seems to be the strongest point.
All right, moving on to 111. We have my selection, Jadarian Price, who's a guy that I didn't necessarily expect to take as running back 2. He's not my running back 2 on my rankings. But in this mock, he went 49th overall to Minnesota, and that's a really great landing spot because he's got a lot of those same traits that an Aaron Jones type has, a good receiver, a nice explosive running back. Aaron Jones looks like he's on his way out in Minnesota. I think this would be a great pairing with him and Jordan Mason in Minnesota. Obviously, a decent offense. We need to figure out what's going on with the quarterback position there. Who knows if they address that at all this offseason, but there's going to be ample opportunity for him to get touches in Minnesota. So had to take him here at 111. I like him a lot. He's a big play waiting to happen. I always liken him a little bit to Kenneth Walker. I just love any given play, he could just explode and take it all the way to the house. So I think this would be a great 1-2 punch with Jordan Mason up there, where he probably gets a roughly 50-50 snap share, if not a little bit higher than that. So had to take him here at 111.
They cut Aaron Jones too, so this would be perfect for him.
Absolutely, yeah. I wasn't sure if that was official or not yet. Yeah. So good landing spot for him. I think that's one of the popular landing spots for these rookie running backs is Minnesota. So got to take him here at the back end of the first half if he gets that kind of draft capital and landing spot.
Yeah, it feels like a realistic spot too. We know the Vikings have been talking with a lot of running backs. I mean, I would put Jadarian Price probably. He would move up for me definitely if he went to Minnesota. And then in my next pick right there, 112, Chris. Stuck with a little bit of a homerism here, right? I've been an Emmett Johnson guy for a while, and of course, it doesn't the landing spot to Houston doesn't look quite as good as it did when we did this mock. Of course, we know Mr. David Montgomery went there now, so it doesn't look as good right now. But this is just me betting on the talent, man. I really love this kid, and like Mike said at the top of the show, the only 40 we care about is an ounces, man. So I don't care about the lack of long speed. We already knew that. I'm not going to negatively double count against this kid because he didn't run a super fast 40. That was never part of his game. But what he can do is he's going to be a decent wide receiver out there. So he's going to rack up those PPR points and he's going to make defenders miss. Now, if he did go to Houston in the second round, I probably wouldn't like him as much. I would probably take some of these other guys over him. But at the time of this, I thought, you know what? He's just got Woody Marks there. And I love Woody Marks for what he did for my Trojans that final year there. But I don't think he's anything special. And I felt like Emmett Johnson could really take over that room, especially with like the not best offensive line out there in Houston, where I think CJ Stroud would kind of be forced to dump off to Emmett Johnson a lot, kind of like he was asked to do at Nebraska when Dylan Raiola went down. So that was kind of my thought process behind that. But looking back now, he wouldn't last this long. I think there's another running back I'd take the very end of this draft, spoiler alert, that I would take in this spot.
Yeah, I think Houston, this was a weird landing spot. Obviously, we did this mock prior to the combine, but it's just a little strange to me to put him there because he's very much the same kind of running back as Woody Marks. So it's a little bit redundant. Obviously, they've now got David Montgomery, a little bit more of a thumper that I think will pair well with Woody. I think Woody's actually being treated pretty unfairly right now because I think what he had going on his plate last year was way too much. He was being asked to do things that he shouldn't have been asked to do. And I think now giving him a guy like David Montgomery will actually elevate his game a little bit where he's not trying to do too much. I mean, his yards per carry was rough. You know, he had over 220 touches last year. Not something you want to see out of Woody Marks. You want to see him as more of a satellite back, a guy that you can go in there, get some passes allocated to him, let him do his thing, and then put another guy in there for goal line situations and for running up the middle. And I think now it's actually a low-key good running back room. So I don't love this landing spot for Emmett Johnson, but we know he's a very talented running back, and he's going to land somewhere. I think second round is definitely doable, especially here. This is 59th overall, so that'd be closer to the back half of the second round. I think that's roughly where you can project him is, you know, late second, early third. And wherever he goes, he's going to have an opportunity to catch some passes. So decent spot for him overall as far as draft capital goes.
Yeah, I listened to the show you guys did as a guest on Emmett Johnson, the Degens episode, if I'm not mistaken, right? You guys did that?
Yeah.
I think you guys did an awesome job with that. I also will say, I don't know if you guys will agree or not, but Emmett Johnson to me has some of the most natural hands out of the backfield for a running back that in this class for me. I think he's a very talented pass catcher. I think he's a really good running back too. Like, you know, I think I was sharing you guys clips of him just making people look foolish in the open field, can make people miss. The biggest thing for him is his, you know, short yardage, you know, contact balance type of stuff. But you just mentioned this landing spot with David Montgomery in Houston. He doesn't need to be that guy. Right, he could be the guy who gets you these chunk plays, these pass catching roles. I would still like this. Just the offensive line situation in Houston is almost hilarious because they're trading offensive linemen for David Montgomery. They're trading
it's
offensive
completely
linemen.
ridiculous.
I just don't understand what they're doing. But yeah,
I like. It's like they hate CJ Stroud. I swear they want to watch CJ Stroud fail. It's so strange. They got some sleeper agents working for the Titans or something in that GM room there, scouting room. That's crazy. But yeah, we'll move on here to the second round. And the first pick of the second round is, of course, Mike's. And it's Denzel Boston, who did in this mock get first round capital, 24th overall to Cleveland, which I think is probably why he wasn't a little bit higher for any of us at this point. This is a good value button for him. Obviously, they could use a wide receiver in Cleveland. They could use a lot in Cleveland, though. That's the problem. I think everybody saw what Shedeur did last year, and they realized he's not the answer. And Gabriel didn't look great either. And like, who knows what they ultimately go with at the quarterback position. But this is a guy who I feel like is semi-quarterback proof because as long as the ball is relatively close to him, he's got an opportunity to go up there and get it. He's great in contested catches. He's a real end zone threat. I think he could probably lead all rookie wide receivers in touchdowns next year. So no matter where he lands, he's going to have an opportunity to produce. It's just his overall ceiling might be a little bit suppressed if he ends up in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think this would be, unfortunately, because I've been pounding the table for this guy, the Cedric Tillman replacement, just because he hasn't been able to stay healthy throughout his career in Cleveland. But I like Denzel Boston, an ex-wide receiver, big body. You know, you mentioned the red zone opportunities, the big plays down the field. Has some decent route running too. Obviously, with these larger wide receivers, it is harder for them to do these comeback routes, the things that you got to do with the sinking of the hips. But I do think there is some decent hip fluidity for Denzel Boston. But again, his biggest calling card is playing above the rim. And they kind of need that in Cleveland where, they don't have a whole lot of explosive options at this point. And I think that would open up things for Harold Fannin. So I'm just going to keep mentioning Harold Fannin during this episode. This is the second time. I still don't, I'm not 100% sure Shedeur isn't the answer in Cleveland. Like, I think he was fine for what Cleveland was last year, right? They were not good in general. So it'll be interesting to see what they look like going into this year.
Yeah, this to me is just the worst for him of the, upper echelon wide receivers in this class. Going to Cleveland just feels like that value killer in these rookie drafts. And like Chris mentioned, that's the entire reason why he slid. But again, trust your training, trust the talent. Situations hopefully get better. Maybe the Browns surprise us and they fire Andrew Berry, their GM, and they get somebody competent in there to run the organization. But I feel like the Browns have been waiting for that forever. So I wouldn't really hold my breath. But Chris, let's go ahead.
I can't believe he still has the job and Stefanski got fired. But, Stefanski's probably happy about that, to be honest, because he landed on his feet in Atlanta. 202, I followed this up. As I mentioned before, I like a lot of these tight ends in this draft, and Michael Trigg is my guy in this draft class because I absolutely love the receiving ability. I think he's got a chance to be the best fantasy tight end in this draft. He's a huge, big-bodied, freak of nature athlete who can make ridiculous catches, and in this scenario, he's going in the second round to Philadelphia at 54th overall. So a little bit of a homer pick there, but it seems like Goddard's on his way out there. He'll test his waters there in free agency, and they're going to be looking for a way to replace tight end production. And if Michael Trigg is the answer, that's awesome. They're a little bit more of a run first offense these days, but this is a guy who's going to be a threat in the red zone, much like how they used Dallas Goedert the last couple of years. He was often looked at by Jalen Hurts in the red zone. So I think he's got an opportunity here to be an immediate producer as a rookie, which is something that, we come to expect, it seems like, from tight ends, but I'm always cautious. So you got to know that tight ends don't always produce as rookies, but this would be a fantastic landing spot for him. So I had to take him here at 202.
It's a good call by you. I definitely think Dallas Goedert is gone. Some of the things I've been reading is that they're just not going to pay him. And they have too much going on here in Philadelphia with the A.J. Brown situation. I think Dallas Goedert's become an afterthought to that front office. But I would like this. I would like this fit here. They need a guy to even be in a more explosive version of Dallas Goedert who can win these intermediate short type wide receiver or pass catching options. And then you mentioned the red zone threat. I think he would be great there. And I think any tight end that Philadelphia brings in is going to be, super interesting to me. But I like this call, especially at this point in the draft in the tight end premium league.
Yeah, for sure. I love hearing the perspective from the two Eagles fans on this. Of course, you guys love the pick, but we love Michael Trigg in the dojo. Look, it's like when these Trojans or these former Trojans leave my team, I kind of hold a grudge against them. I've tried to work on that. Michael Trigg, baby, I never stopped loving you, man. Him and Jackson Dart both left with.
I was going to say you hated Jackson Dart. I will never let.
I did, and you weren't in the group chat, Mike, but I was talking about that a little bit, and I was like, you know what? He was just a young kid. It was really when the transfer portal thing first started happening, and we got Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley, and Jackson Dart was talking about how much he wanted to play under him, and then him and Trigg both left and went with Lane Kiffin to Ole Miss for a little bit. And I'm glad that Michael Trigg got his head on his shoulders. He was a little bit of a knucklehead, dealt with some career injuries, dealt with some suspensions. He was announced that he was kicked off Ole Miss at one point, and then that's why he ultimately went to Baylor. But it sounds like he's got his stuff together now, and I'm super happy for him. I would love him at the Eagles for all the reasons that you guys said. So still believe in the talent. If you need a tight end in this year's class, this is a pretty good class to need it. Honestly, I really like some of these tight ends.
Maybe not as much of a high-end class for tight ends, but a lot of depth. And, a lot of depth. Some of these guys are going to break our hearts, as most tight ends do, but it's fun to project, man.
For sure.
So here at 203, we have Chris Brazzell going to the Los Angeles Rams in the second round at 61st overall. I think anytime we got a guy going to a McVay offense as a wide receiver, your ears perk up a little bit, right? So this is a great spot for him. Maybe not for instant production, because obviously they have both Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. I think we're both top 10 wide receivers in points per game last year. Just absolute monsters. But, that's a great landing spot for him, because with this Tennessee helmet on, everybody wants the helmet scout. They think he might need a little bit of time to learn a little bit. This is the best place to learn. Learn from some of these vets, open your game up a little bit. He'll get to see the field. He just might not be a super producer as a rookie. And I think 203 at this landing spot is great for him.
Yes, second round draft capital to the Los Angeles Rams. How could you not get excited? I mean, look, I've been on that Brazzell train all seasons. I think in November of the college football season, I wrote an article on him saying why he was like, don't sleep on him being a potential first round guy. Now, he didn't get that first round draft capital in this, but second round to the Rams, I mean, that's just as good in my mind. Like you said, he would probably likely need to sit, but learning from Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, that's not a bad thing, really. And I
just
do
don't
think
learn the off the field stuff from Puka Nacua.
Yeah,
Look,
I mean, that's some LA tendencies going to young Puka's mind there, in my opinion. But I mean, on the field, soak up all that you can from those two, especially Devontae Adams. Of course, we know Brazzell is going to need a little bit of refinement. The Tennessee offense does scare a lot of people, but I mean, watching them throughout the season, like we do for college football, Chris, we noted multiple times that they were running more condensed sets. I saw this guy running out of the slot. Like it's not always that ultra widespread stuff, taking advantage of the college hash marks. It wasn't all that. Now, did they do that? Yes. But what I love about him is he didn't break out at Tennessee, right? He first started at Tulane, and we saw him do some things that he wasn't asked to do at Tulane or at Tennessee, excuse me, where he was more of that vertical shot. But the most receiving yards in the SEC does matter to me. He went off against Georgia. Now, some people will say they were falling down. I think he was working them, to be honest. And then he continued to just be a deep threat. And we saw that shown at the combine, running a very good 4.3 something. I didn't come prepared tonight. I don't have all the combine notes, but I know that he shocked some people with that time. He didn't shock us here. We were kind of expecting that. I know with that long stride, it's kind of sometimes hard to see on tape, but I mean, if you listen to 247 or some of the reports that were coming out early, people at Tennessee were saying this dude's fast, like legit fast, and a legit 6'5", has NFL bloodlines. I would just be over the moon to get him with Sean McVay.
Yeah, I definitely don't see the typical tight end, Tennessee wide receiver in Brazzell. People want to say Thornton from last year because of the size, because of the speed. I don't see that. I see some really nice route running from him. The only thing that gives me a little bit pause with him is I think he needs to get stronger, and especially in a team like the Los Angeles Rams, who the no block, no rock type of stuff, the physicality is needed. He's definitely going to have to get into that Rams weight room and work on that, because I do think there is some untapped potential there when it comes to playing above the rim, winning these 50-50 balls, these strength stuff. I am interested. I'm a little bit more hesitant, but if he gets this late round 2 draft capital to a place like the Rams, who are, like I mentioned, no block, no rock, mentality, I would definitely be interested later on, like where he actually went.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And then here you followed that up with Chris Bell, and this was a great landing spot for him. Second round, 60th overall to the Buffalo Bills. And, that's one of everybody's favorite place to wish cast all these guys, including A.J. Brown, as you aforementioned. But getting him a rookie in there that can do a lot of different things would be absolutely great for Josh Allen, that is. And Chris Bell is very talented, and he's flying under a lot of radars right now because of that ACL injury. And he wasn't able to compete in the combine, and he's still recovering. But don't be surprised if he goes in the second round, much like in this mock, because he's an extremely talented wide receiver.
100% agreed. That's why I took him here. The ACL definitely is scary. And now that, DJ Moore being there too could create a little bit of confusion because of the way they kind of play. But he's a big dude, really good after the catch, has some I thought his speed was actually solid as well, especially in a build-up aspect. I think he sits down well in zones. I'm very interested in Bell, especially like at the 204, where I'm a team that's not really a contender, and still in that rebuild sense. We're imagining Bell's not going to get us any fantasy points this year, right? Or not many at all. So that's going to help me get a better 2027 rookie draft pick. And then I got a guy in Bell who I really like, who got really good draft capital. What's not to like at that point? You play the game within the game.
Dude, we love Chris Bell here. We were doing early mocks in like November, and Chris Bell was a back-end first-round Dynasty rookie pick for us. I mean, we've always loved the talent, and the injury was just so unfortunate, man. I didn't include him in my top 10 rankings, and it really pained me to not include him. He was in my top 12, but not in my top 10. But I just love the kid, man. I'm rooting for him.
Absolutely, yeah. 205, I took Ty Simpson. He's going 34th overall, so beginning of the second round to Arizona in this mock. And who knows what they are going to do there, but we know Kyler is no longer part of the equation, and that's what we assumed when we did this mock draft. And so this is obviously going to be the quarterback of the future in Arizona. I think if this is the scenario, it's likely that they re-sign Jacoby Brissett, let him start the year, and most likely Simpson comes in at some point and takes over once he gets a little bit of extra practice reps and gets to learn the offense a little bit better. But I think Ty Simpson, not my favorite quarterback prospect I've ever scouted. You know, he's very raw because of his limited experience in the college level. 15 starts, right? Career starts. But if you're getting this kind of capital and you're going to a place that absolutely has a quarterback need, this is a great spot to take him in Superflex mocks, which is why I grabbed him here. I think that overall, there's a good chance that this is going to pay dividends. You know, I'm always taking quarterbacks whenever I can get value in them in rookie drafts, even if I just intend to flip them, man, because they're always going to move up a little bit whenever they start getting those starting reps. So as soon as they start, you can flip them for more picks or flip them for something else. So easy value button here for me at 205.
He basically could just be the younger version of Tyler Shuck of this class, where you're getting him in the second round. He's not really going to be a producer early on. I think he's a solid quarterback. Obviously, he bet on himself at staying in Alabama last year at a good program, or what we thought was going to be a really good program. I think, you know, solid quarterback. It just remains to be seen, obviously, what he ends up being as an NFL quarterback.
And we shall see. 206, we have another running back. This is only the fourth running back coming off the board here. And Dustin, you took Jonah Coleman. Don't love this landing spot. So in this mock, he went fourth round, 117th overall to Jacksonville. And who knows what's happening with ETN. I have a feeling he's going to be back. They have Tootin there as well. They traded Tank Bisbee, so there is a little bit more opportunity than there might have been. But I don't know if I love that overall. I think maybe in this scenario, they just get rid of Etienne. I'm not really sure, but certainly a very talented running back that we love here at the dojo.
Yeah, I think Jonah Coleman has been like a darling of ours since the beginning of this podcast. We've always loved the talent. I'm with you, man. I don't really like the landing spot, but if they do get rid of Travis Etienne, then it looks a lot better in my mind. I think that he would profile as the early down back, right? And you know, he might not break it for 70, but he's going to get chunk yardage consistently, and he's going to get some goal line work. Of course, my pro comp for him is David Montgomery, and I think that you'll see a lot of that, what David Montgomery brought to the NFL to him, just a dependable back that's going to last forever, get those goal line carries, and he's going to provide some value, probably always be consistently undervalued in these formats. But yeah, this was like a trust the talent type of pick right here, because I'm with you, man. I didn't like it for Jacksonville because a lot of the unknowns right now. What did you think about him, Mike? I've never really asked you what you thought about Jonah Coleman this year.
So this landing spot would really hurt my soul when it comes to LaQuint Allen, but you know, that's a conversation for another time. I like Jonah Coleman, and you know, you mentioned it earlier, Chris. He kind of reminds me of a better hands version of Tank Bigsby. So I think he's a better pass catcher than Tank was. I think they both have this good power back mentality to them. What I really like about Jonah Coleman is that he really sticks his nose into pass blocking. I've seen him forklift dudes. I've seen him really get in there and be a physical presence as a pass protector. But again, he's just a guy who can get 4 yards in a cloud of dust. He has really good vision and patience. I like Coleman. I just wouldn't love this landing spot, obviously, like we mentioned.
Yeah, unfortunately. And then you followed that up at 207 with Malachi Fields, who this is a absolutely salivating landing spot for him. Second round, 63rd overall to the Patriots, who is somebody who could desperately use a wide receiver. Malachi Fields, I think, is one of those guys that's floating right around the back end, top 10, top 15 for a lot of people. And this landing spot would surely make his ADP rise a little bit.
Yeah, he falls right outside of my top 10 wide receivers. I think he's 11 or 12, if I'm not mistaken. But I think this is another big body wide receiver. I think you could tell by my draft, I like a lot of these big body wideouts: Chris Bell, Denzel Boston, Malachi Fields. All big bodies. I think Fields, when I watched him on film, he didn't look as quick. Like, I thought his footwork was very slow as a wide receiver. But then when I saw him down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, he looked quicker to me. So maybe that's something he worked on this offseason. Maybe that's something, his team was telling him he needed to work on. So that's impressive to me. You want to see those kind of steps. Obviously, we mentioned the 40 time. We talked about it ad nauseum, how it doesn't really matter. But he didn't have the greatest 40. I think he's more of a build-up speed guy, and I think this is a guy the Patriots could use as a real, down the field, big body presence. I would like this spot for him.
But Notre Dame, man, they just like to run the ball, and when you got Jadarian Price and Jeremiyah Love, you're going to run the damn ball. And so I need to go back and watch his film, because a lot of people that I really trust have been telling me to go watch his film and that I would like him more. So
208, this should come as no surprise to anybody who follows our content. Jeremy Bernard, he's one of my favorite wide receivers in this class. I've said it a million times. I don't think he has the biggest upside, but I have you one. He has one of the highest floors of wide receivers in this class. He can do it all, man. He lines up at any position on the wide receiver lineup, and he also has taken snaps at running back. He's extremely reliable. He's a hardworking guy. In this scenario, he's going 47th overall to the Colts. I think that's a great landing spot for him because they do have other guys there. We'll see what happens with Alec Pierce testing free agency, but they have other guys in that wide receiver room that do good work, and this would put less weight on his shoulders off the bat, which I think is great. It'll give him a chance to grow a little bit in a fairly decent offense that kind of shocked a lot of people, especially early in the year this year with Daniel Jones, and he's definitely coming back for the Colts as well. So I think this is a great landing spot for him to get his feet wet, maybe have a couple of decent games as a rookie, and then start to grow his overall profile into becoming a solid wide receiver too in the NFL.
I like that call. I like this pick. Bernard was not somebody I had watched when we did this draft a couple weeks ago. And I watched him recently, and I came away pretty impressed. Me and Dustin, and I believe, Chris, you were involved in this conversation too, if I'm not mistaken. We all expected more out of Ryan Williams last year. Bernard was the guy in Alabama last year. And I'm going to say something a little controversial here, but I don't see a huge difference between Omar Cooper and Jeremy Bernard, to be honest with you. They play a similar way, physical after the catch. They do a lot of their dirty work after the catch. If you look at a lot of their stats too, they're very similar. I came away impressed. He's a nuanced route runner, isn't super explosive, but kind of just like does what he needs to do, wins in that way. A little bit less, how do I say this? At the size of, what did I have him at? He is at 6'1", 204. I kind of expected a little bit more strong contested catch kind of stuff. I don't think he's great at that, but he gets open pretty well. So I guess you got to take it where you can. But I ended up liking Bernard a lot, to be honest with you guys.
I mean, there's a lot to like about him. He's really versatile out there. He's an intelligent player, and he was a guy that Bama went to when the game was on the line, right? I mean, we saw, I can't recall the game right now, but there was a drive where it was 4th down conversion by Bernard, eventual touchdown by Bernard to put them over the top and win the game. They even were lining him up in the backfield, as Chris has said a lot. And, Mike, I do like that call out of the similarities between him and Omar Cooper. Cooper's getting more shine because, Indiana won the national championship. I think if Bernard had been able to have a healthy Ty Simpson in the playoffs, and maybe, they eventually beat Georgia there in the playoffs, maybe some people start to see that. But, the play of the Alabama skill positions really fell off throughout the season. Of course, they had 0 running game. The pass protection was just awful at times. Sometimes it was Ty Simpson's fault, but of course he was playing with the injury. We don't know how that affected his confidence. So I won't hold it against him too much. But early in the season, man, we were singing the praises of Bernard. calling him like he scored 100 on the dog meter for sure. So I love that pick, Chris. But at 209, I went with the guy that got 5th round draft capital to the Chiefs. I'm talking about our man here, Claiborne, running back. It's a position that Kansas City needs, and I think getting 5th round drafted, selecting a running back in the 5th round is more on par with what the Kansas City Chiefs have done in recent history. Of course, everybody wants Jeremiyah Love to go to them. I don't think he lasts to them. He didn't last in this mock. So I think waiting until the 5th round to get a guy with this talent, with this home run hitting ability, is a really smart play by them. I do have my concerns with Claiborne. I think he has some fumbling issues. He kind of holds the ball out, and it allows linebackers to come in and pop it out, or safeties, whatever defenders around him. He's a little undersized. I forget what he came at the combine, but it was a little lower than what he had been on PFF. So, I mean, have my concerns with that. But if they're able to effectively use him, like in the screen game, something that Andy Reid has always been able to do, going back to his time at Philadelphia, just get the ball in his hands. I think he's going to rack up those PPR points. And if you got that spike week potential in a guy that can hit it, take it to the house on any given play, then I'm all for that. You know, I think in college they kind of ran a little gimmicky of an offense, I would say at times, but dude is a baller out there, and I would be very excited for this pick. So what are you guys' thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think he has the best lateral movement of any of these running backs in this class. He's so much fun to watch when he makes cuts and jukes and spin moves out there. He's always trying to throw all the buttons at the defenders to get a little extra space. And I think that's really, really fun to watch. He's one of my favorites. I actually tried to make him my guy for the rookie guide that we're talking about. And I even texted Mike. I was like, I know that Ben's probably going to make him his guy. So I had a backup lined up, and sure enough, Ben took him as his guy. But he was my first pick for my guy. I just let Ben have his moment of glory there because he wrote the profile on him. But I love Claiborne. I think anytime anybody's going to the Chiefs, even if it's in the 5th round, obviously we're going to spike up a little bit because that is a place that could use a running back. It seems like they've been doing absolute piecework, just patching everything together. I can't believe Isaiah Pacheco's even in the league, let alone getting meaningful snaps for a contender like the Kansas City Chiefs. And Kareem Hunt, I mean, what's up with this guy, dude? Isn't he like 30 now? So obviously Claiborne to the Chiefs is great for everybody. He's a lot of fun to watch, man. Just go watch some tape on him. You'll love him.
So this is basically, what Dustin said about Malachi Fields not watching a whole lot of all 22 of him. This is one that I haven't had a full chance to watch the all 22 of yet, but I watched the highlight film. This is, like you guys mentioned, a home run hitter. I really liked what you mentioned about, the pass catching, the Brian Westbrook stuff. That is really what I hope for Prashard Smith. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So Claiborne could come in and take that job. They've really needed an explosive presence in that backfield, and I think Claiborne could give that to them.
Without a doubt. And then your pick at 210, Justin Joly going to New Orleans. So you've taken 2 Saints here already in this mock draft. In this mock, he's going 3rd round to New Orleans Saints and becoming a nice tight end pass catching weapon for them there down south.
Yeah, shout out to Rocco, Saints guy. I think he'd be happy with all the Saints conversation we've had in this episode. But I really like Joly. Good, fluid mover, sits down well in the zone. Blocking could probably be, a little bit better. I think the yak could get a little bit better, but I really like his hands. Again, this just falls into the category of a guy who plays tight end, but is really a wide receiver, right? And, we all love, as football fans, that Greg Jennings put the team on his back, limping down the sideline. Joly did that in real time just last year. So,
against Pitt too, we love to see it.
Yeah, we 10 out of 10 on the dog meter for him. And this, honestly, New Orleans was the landing spot here. It would not shock me if he's a Philadelphia Eagle come the draft.
I would love that.
Yeah, much like we talked about with Trigg, that would be a great landing spot for any tight end, and he would be a lot of fun there. Super physical guy. He's a great contested catch monster with 66% on his career and almost 85% contested catch success rate in his junior season, which is absolutely phenomenal. This guy is just toughness defined. We talk about the dog meter. He's all the way up on the dog meter, and he would be an instant fan favorite down there in New Orleans. I followed that pick up at 211 with a guy who I'm not super thrilled about. I don't love Garrett Nussmeier as a prospect, But in this mock, he's going 3rd round, 85th overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers to potentially be that successor to Aaron Rodgers, that future quarterback there in Pittsburgh. And of course, I took Makai Lemon with my 2nd pick, also going to Pittsburgh in this mock. So I was like, I gotta do it here. Double up, get that pass catching duo there. And Nussmeier, like I said, he had a rough year, man. You know, we were a little bit higher on him coming into this season. Things did not look great for him this year, but if he's going to go 3rd round at a place where we can easily project him to be the quarterback of the future, he's probably going to be going here in the 2nd rounds of these Dynasty Superflex drafts. So had to take him here. I know that you guys probably both aren't super high on Nussmeier either, but given the landing spot, this is a pretty decent option for me here at 211.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh definitely takes a shot in the dark at quarterback at some point during this draft. I don't think it'll be high up. I don't think they'll take like a Ty Simpson, but 3rd, 4th round, I could see them taking a guy like Nussmeier. They talked about it a lot, especially down at the Senior Bowl with his injury last year, kind of really set him back. I think we all kind of expected LSU to kind of look better than what they did last year. And I think part of that definitely had to do with Nussmeier's injury. But going back to the year before, he was just a very solid quarterback. I think a lot of people expected him to be a higher up pick in last year's draft than he would be in this year. So that might have been a bad gamble on his part. But I think he's just an overall solid quarterback. I could see him getting 2nd round capital. If a team falls in love with him, maybe he gets to sit for a year and learn behind a guy like Aaron Rodgers. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't mind this, though.
Yeah, this is the Gumbo Gunslinger, man. I was very high on him. I defended him against Chev like he was my own son a couple times early on in the season when he was calling him, all the game. Nutsmeyer is what Chev called him. Injuries happen. We know that progress and development is not always linear with these guys. He and Drew Aller probably would have been better coming out last season, of course, but injuries. I mean, this guy was a product of Brian Kelly. Come on. I mean, we've seen him just perennially fail to meet expectations. And I remember, Chris, early in the offseason, we all got the news alert. Garrett Nussmeier went down. Brian Kelly comes out and addresses the media, says, it ain't a big deal. He's going to be out there. Turns out it was a big deal. Turns out dude couldn't even really throw the football. And I mean, the typical Brian Kelly, let's just put the dude out there, right? I mean, I ain't going to get on my spiel on Brian Kelly. I wish we could have gotten Garrett Nussmeier with Lane Kiffin at LSU. I think that would have been much better because the pre-snap processing for this dude is good. It's the post-snap stuff that kind of has me concerned, especially with some pressure. But I mean, he's making adjustments at the line. He's the son of a coach and Doug Nussmeier. So I mean, he's grown up in the film room. He plays the quarterback position like he's a coach's son. He really does. So I would love him to Pittsburgh. I think that he could definitely beat Will Howard for QB2 right off the rip. I just really do. I think he's a better passer. And you really saw his stock kind of elevate there at the Senior Bowl. So I'm with you, Mike. I expect 2nd round draft capital. But moving on to this guy at 212, my last pick, and this is a guy that's going to be taken way higher.
Since the combine, absolutely, yeah.
Yes. I'm talking about Mike Washington Jr. Now, in this mock that we're running, he got 5th round draft capital to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, I think those are rookie numbers, baby. We gotta bump those up.
You gotta bump those rookie numbers up for sure.
Yeah, this guy is over 220 pounds and ran the same speed as like a Devon Achane out there. Like literally, maybe 0.1 second off. It's incredible what he's able to do. And the speed was evident on tape. This is a guy that got me excited, jumping out of my seat, whooping and hollering because he kind of came out of nowhere, right? Digging into some of his backstory for the profile, this is a guy who his entire senior season in high school was cut out entirely. There was no senior year of high school for this kid because of COVID. And he was on track as a junior to be a high 4-star recruit. And of course that didn't happen. There was no in-person visits during this time. So his recruitment was really screwed up and he decided to just stay home, stayed at Buffalo. He had the program's longest rush in program history with over 90 yards. And then, he was kind of mediocre. I think the scheme there in Buffalo didn't really fit his skill set. And of course, the thing that I loved, he had a positional coach at Buffalo that said, look, you don't need to enter the transfer portal because you're not talented enough to go play in the SEC. And of course, we know he transferred to Arkansas and oh baby, he made some magic. Now they didn't win a lot of games down there at Arkansas, but Mike Washington Jr. was definitely the highlight of this season for them. a lot of wiggle, surprising wiggle for a big guy, and home run ability. Size speed combo is just so tantalizing, man. So this will be a traits pick later, and he's gonna be picked a lot higher than this. But I could talk about this dude all day. So Mike, talk to me about Mike Washington Jr., please.
It's crazy to think that I think he either almost hit it or did hit it 21 miles per hour down at the Senior Bowl, which is crazy to think about at his size. Had really nice hands down at the Senior Bowl as well, but that also shows up on film, right? Because we want in fantasy to our running backs to be really good pass catchers, and he does that in spades. I think he's a powerful back. Surprising speed, like we mentioned. I do think his pass protection needs to get better. I have that notated here a couple times in my notes. But again, that could be something learned in an NFL coaching staff. But again, this would be the guy, if he ends up going to Tampa Bay, that would realistically make me a little nervous for Bucky Irving. This would be the one out of probably two guys, because obviously if Love somehow ends up at Tampa Bay, I'd be petrified, but I don't see that happening. Mike Washington would give me a little bit of pause when it comes to Bucky, because of just everything that he can do, the size speed combo, the pass catching. He's just super impressive. Again, I think we talked about it in a text message during the combine, and he was tearing up after running that 40 time. This is a kid you really want to root for because it shows how much it means to him. So again, I'm super impressed with Mike Washington. This is going to be a guy. If I'm taking any of the running backs, especially in this range, I'm going to be taking a lot of dart throws on Mike Washington.
Yeah, I mean, just massive upside, especially after the combine with what he showed between his size and his speed. The one I would pour a little bit of cold water on is he's just had a lot of fumbles in his career. So that's something that he needs to work on a little bit. I do believe that he's got that potential. That's something that it doesn't seem like it's really a running style issue. It's just hold the ball a little bit tighter, make less mental mistakes. So I think that could be coached out of him, but that's also an easy way to get yourself riding the pine very quickly, especially if you're in a backfield with guys like Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. So not the greatest landing spot for him, but he's definitely going to be in the top 2 rounds of your upcoming rookie drafts. So getting him here at 212, absolute value. And I got to say, I'm surprised that we did an entire 2-round mock draft and I didn't take a single Penn Stater. That's ridiculous. What am I doing here?
It's progress. I'll be real with you, Chris. I was expecting a Drew Aller here.
Drew Aller, I almost took over Nussmeier, but
yeah.
What can you do?
I was honestly shocked that you didn't. But hey, fellas, man, we did it. Mike, it was good having you on, man. I love this. We're definitely going to have to do this again. We're really ramping up our guest series here. So happy to have you on, man. I really enjoyed this. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Devy Dojo. If you enjoyed this content, go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure that you join the free Devy Dojo Discord. The link is going to be right there on your screen and in the description. That's the best way to stay connected with us and everything that we got cooking. I don't know about you, Chris, but I'm getting a little tired of looking at all this 2026 film. I think that it's time that we get back to the foundation of the show. Next week, we go back to Devy with another special guest, Corey P. from the Back to Devy podcast. We'll be breaking down recent transfer portal moves that could seriously shift Devy value heading into the season. You're not going to want to miss it. But until then, trust your trading.